The arena was a vast structure, its silver walls towering into the sky like a monument to despair. An endless sea of alien faces filled the stadium, their strange features twisting in excitement as they waited for the next fight. In the center of the arena stood a human, his posture calm despite the growing tension. Commander Jace Willard had been taken from Earth, abducted by a coalition of alien warlords who thrived on blood sports. His opponent, the mysterious and terrifying beast that everyone whispered about. Jace had heard the rumors. The beast was an undefeated monster, a towering creature that could crush a being with a flick of its massive claws. The aliens, known as the Quartal, were particularly excited for this match. Their general, a hulking figure with cold, reptilian eyes, stood on a platform above the arena, watching the proceedings with detached interest. The beast demands a worthy opponent. The alien general boomed through a translator, his voice echoing throughout the arena. Jace glanced at the other side of the arena, where a massive gate slowly creaked open. The crowd held its breath as a monstrous creature lumbered into view, covered in dark, scaly skin with glowing red eyes, and towering over Jace by several feet. The beast snarled, revealing rows of jagged teeth. Its presence was overwhelming, a nightmare come to life. Yet, Jace's response was not what the aliens expected. He chuckled, his calm expression barely wavering. "This is the beast you're all so afraid of?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "Looks like a gentle pup to me." The alien crowd erupted in confused murmurs. Some laughed nervously, others were visibly agitated. The general narrowed his eyes, not sure what to make of this human's audacity. Jace wasn't mocking them. In fact, he was planning. He had faced plenty of terrifying creatures before. Earth might have been peaceful before the abductions, but Jace had lived through the last great war. His experience in combat made him a sharp tactician, and he could already see the beast's weakness, its heavy, slow movements. The creature relied too much on brute strength. The beast roared and lunged at Jace, swiping its massive claws at him. Jace dodged with the agility of a trained soldier, moving swiftly to the side. The creature stumbled slightly, its balance thrown off by the failed attack. Jace's sharp eyes caught the way the beast moved, powerful but sluggish. As the crowd roared with bloodthirsty excitement, Jace's mind was calculating. "Find your enemy's weakness," he whispered to himself, remembering the words of his old mentor. "Turn their strength against them." With each step, Jace carefully observed the beast, learning its patterns. Every swipe, every roar, every step gave him more information. He knew he couldn't overpower it, but he didn't need to. He just needed to outsmart it. As the fight wore on, Jace began to exploit the beast's slow reflexes. Every time it attacked, he dodged with ease, landing quick, precise strikes on its vulnerable spots, its joints, its neck, its ribs. The beast's roars grew louder, its frustration mounting as it failed to catch the nimble human. The alien general watched, his interest piqued. This human was unlike any other they had captured. Instead of fighting with brute force, he fought with strategy and skill. The general's eyes gleamed with a mix of curiosity and malice. This would be a match to remember. Just as the beast prepared for one final devastating charge, Jace made his move. He sidestepped the creature's attack and, in one swift motion, vaulted onto its back. The crowd gasped as Jace grabbed hold of the beast's thick mane, pulling it to the ground with a well-placed blow to the back of its head. The arena fell silent as the monstrous beast collapsed, unconscious but alive. Jace stood over it, breathing heavily but victorious. He glanced up at the alien general, his expression calm but defiant. "That was fun," Jace said with a smirk, wiping the sweat from his brow. "But if this is the best you've got, you'll need to try harder next time." The general, for the first time, smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "This human," he said quietly to his advisors, "may be more entertaining than we thought." As Jace was led back to his cell, The other captives whispered excitedly. Word had already spread about the human who had taken down the beast. Jace knew this victory was only the beginning. He had survived this round, but there were more challenges ahead. And now the aliens had their eyes on him. He would need to be prepared for whatever came next. Back in his cell, Jace could feel the weight of the captives' gazes. They looked at him with a mixture of awe and hope. He had become a symbol, a beacon of resistance in a world where survival seemed impossible. The alien guards kept their distance, clearly wary of him after his performance in the arena. They had seen what he could do, and they were unsure how to handle this unexpected threat. Jace knew he had to keep up the act. His calm demeanor and confident attitude were his best weapons. He couldn't let them see the fear that sometimes crept into his thoughts late at night. The aliens expected humans to be weak, terrified, and broken. Jace refused to give them that satisfaction. As he sat in the corner of the cell, Jace's mind raced with possibilities. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was planning an escape. Jace's mind worked quickly, calculating every detail of the arena, the guards' movements, and the layout of the cells. His victory in the arena had earned him a temporary reprieve, but he knew it wouldn't last. The general, with his cold smile and calculating eyes, would have something much more dangerous in store for him. The other captives watched him closely, their silent stares filled with questions they were too afraid to ask. One of the prisoners, a lanky man with sharp features and a nervous energy, finally broke the silence. "What's your plan, Jace? You can't keep winning forever. They'll throw something worse at you." Jace leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "I know. That's why we're not going to wait for them to make the next move." The man's eyes widened, as did a few others who overheard. "What do you mean? You can't seriously think we can get out of here?" "I don't think," Jace replied with a calm certainty. "I know." The cell grew quiet again, the air thick with tension. Jace stood up, moving to the small barred window that overlooked a sliver of the alien arena. "The general, he's not just toying with us for sport. He's studying us. Every move we make, every word we say. He's waiting for us to break." "How do you know that?" asked a woman sitting against the far wall. She had a tough, no-nonsense demeanor, her face weathered from years of hardship. Her eyes, however, were sharp and calculating, much like Jace. "Because I'd do the same if I were in his position," Jace replied, turning to face the group. "He's not just interested in entertainment. He wants to understand us. If we can stay one step ahead of him, we can use that to our advantage." The woman nodded, her expression shifting from skepticism to cautious trust. "So, what's the next step?" Before Jace could answer, the cell door creaked open. 2 alien guards entered, their massive forms filling the doorway. They motioned for Jace to step forward. He didn't resist. As they escorted him out, the other prisoners watched in anxious silence, their newfound hope flickering like a fragile flame. The corridor was dimly lit, and the air felt colder than before. Jace's mind raced as the guards led him deeper into the heart of the alien stronghold. He knew he was being taken to see the general. He had expected this. After the fight with the beast, there was no doubt the general wanted to assess him personally. The guards stopped in front of a large door. It slid open with a hiss, revealing a chamber that was starkly different from the arena's brutal atmosphere. The room was clean, almost clinical, with high ceilings and metallic walls. In the center stood a large table, and seated at it was the general, his reptilian eyes gleaming with intelligence. "Sit," the general commanded, his voice calm but laced with authority. Jace remained standing, his posture unyielding. "I prefer to stand." The general's lip curled into a faint smile, as if amused by Jace's defiance. "You are an interesting specimen, human. Most of your kind break after their first fight. But not you. You thrive on conflict. You embrace it." Jace said nothing, his gaze steady. He knew the general was trying to get a reaction out of him, to break his composure. But Jace had spent years learning to control his emotions, to never let the enemy see his fear. You've earned yourself quite the reputation in the arena, the general continued. The crowd loves you. They see you as an underdog. But you and I both know that there's more to it than that, don't we? Jace remained silent, his mind working through the general's words. He was being tested. That much was clear. But why? What was the general's real game? The general leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. I see potential in you, Jace Willard. You're not like the others. You think, you plan, and that makes you dangerous. Jace allowed himself a slight smirk. If you're afraid of me, why not just kill me now? The general chuckled, a low, menacing sound. Oh, I'm not afraid of you, human. I'm intrigued. You see, we are not so different, you and I. We both understand the nature of war. We both know that strength is not the only path to victory. He stood, walking around the table, until he was face to face with Jace. The general's towering form cast a long shadow, but Jace stood his ground, unflinching. I have a proposition for you, the general said quietly. Join me. Use your skills, your intelligence to serve me. Together, we could be unstoppable. You would no longer be a prisoner. You would be free to fight, to win, and to survive. Jace's eyes flickered with something unreadable. He had expected the general to try and break him, but this offer was unexpected. He knew better than to trust the words of an enemy, especially one as cunning as the general. I come serve tyrants, Jace said coldly. The general's smile faded, replaced by a hard, calculating expression. You misunderstand, human. This is not a request. If you refuse, I will find other ways to break you, and trust me, you will break. Jace's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. He couldn't afford to show any weakness. The general turned away, dismissing Jace with a wave of his hand. Think it over. You have until your next fight to decide. But remember, Jace Willard, everyone has a breaking point. As the guards led Jace back to his cell, he felt the weight of the general's words pressing down on him. The offer lingered in his mind like a dark shadow. He knew he couldn't trust the general, but he also knew that the next fight would be even more dangerous. Time was running out, and he needed to come up with a plan, one that would not only ensure his survival, but also the survival of the other prisoners. Back in his cell, the other captives crowded around him, their eyes filled with hope and fear. Jace sat down, deep in thought. He knew what he had to do. The general's plan was clear, but Jace had his own strategy, and it involved taking down the entire alien stronghold, no matter the cost. Get some rest, Jace said quietly to the group. Tomorrow, we fight back. The room fell silent as the captives realized that Jace wasn't just planning for survival anymore. He was planning for a revolution. The cell buzzed with a tense energy as Jace leaned against the cold metallic wall, his eyes scanning the faces of the other captives. They looked at him with a newfound resolve, but he could sense the fear beneath their determination. They were ready to follow him, but they needed more than just hope. They needed a plan. Jace stood up and motioned for them to gather closer. Listen up. We don't have much time. The general thinks he can control us, that he can use us for his entertainment, but we're going to show him he's wrong. We're not just prisoners. We're fighters. The woman with the no-nonsense demeanor, who had previously asked about the plan, stepped forward. Her name was Nora, a former military strategist back on Earth. Her sharp eyes met Jace's as she spoke. You've got the will to fight, but we need more than that. We need a real strategy, something that'll catch them off guard. Jace nodded. You're right, Nora. That's why we're going to use their own arrogance against them. They think we're broken, that we're just waiting for our next fight. But what if we turn that around? What if we make them think we're ready to cooperate? The lanky man from earlier, who had been watching from the corner, frowned. You mean, pretend to go along with them? Exactly, Jace said, his voice steady. The general thinks I'm a threat, but he's also intrigued. He made me an offer, serve him or break. We're going to make him believe I'm considering it. Nora raised an eyebrow. You're playing a dangerous game, Jace. If he catches on, we're all dead. Jace met her gaze, unwavering. I know, but it's our best shot. While they're distracted with me, we can start working on an escape plan. We need to learn everything we can about the guards' routines, the layout of this place, and any weaknesses in their defenses. A murmur ran through the group as they processed Jace's plan. It was risky, but it was the first real chance they'd had since their capture. For the first time, the idea of escaping didn't seem like a distant fantasy. Nora nodded slowly. All right. I'll start observing the guards during their shifts. We need to know how many there are, how they move, and when they're most vulnerable. I'll help, the lanky man chimed in, his nervous energy replaced by a growing sense of purpose. I used to work with electronics back on Earth. If we can find out where they're controlling the cell doors and security systems, maybe I can do something about it. Good, Jace said, a hint of relief in his voice. The rest of you, start training. We need to be ready for anything. I'll keep the general distracted, but we need to move fast. They won't wait long before they throw us back into the arena. The next day, Jace was once again summoned to the general's chamber. The same 2 guards escorted him, but there was a noticeable tension in their movements, as if they were still unsure how to handle him. Jace kept his face neutral, his mind racing through the details of his plan. When he entered the chamber, the general was already waiting for him, seated at the same metallic table. His reptilian eyes glimmered with curiosity. Have you made your decision, Jace Willard? The general asked, his voice smooth but dangerous. Will you join me, or must I break you? Jace met his gaze with a calm, measured expression. I've thought about your offer. You're right. I'm not like the others. I'm a fighter. But I'm also smart enough to know that survival in this place means adapting. The general's eyes narrowed, studying Jace for any sign of deception. Go on. I'm willing to consider your offer, Jace continued, his voice steady. But I need to know more. What exactly would you expect from me? What would my role be? The general leaned back in his chair, his lips curling into a satisfied smile. Smart choice, human. I would expect loyalty, obedience, and strength. In return, you would be given freedom, within reason. You would still fight, but you would fight with purpose under my command. And of course, you would no longer be treated as a common prisoner. Jace nodded slowly, as if considering the proposition. I'll need time. If I'm going to commit to something like this, I need to be sure. The general's smile widened. Take the time you need, but remember, time is not your ally here. The arena waits, and the next fight will be unlike anything you've faced before. Jace felt a chill run down his spine at the general's words, but he kept his composure. I understand. As the guards led him back to his cell, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that the general had something truly terrifying in store for him. But that only made the urgency of their escape plan even more critical. They had to act soon. Back in the cell, Nora and the lanky man, who had introduced himself as Ellis, were already hard at work. Nora had drawn a crude map of the guard rotations and their patrol routes, based on her observations. Ellis was tinkering with a small panel near the cell door, his fingers moving deftly as he examined the electronics. We've got a window, Nora said quietly as Jace approached. There's a shift change every 8 hours. For about 10 minutes, there's a gap in their patrols. That's when we'll need to make our move. Jace nodded, studying the map. And the security systems. Ellis looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. It's not going to be easy, but I think I can bypass the lock on the cell doors. The problem is the alarm system. If we trigger that, the whole place will know we're trying to escape. Jace thought for a moment. We'll need a distraction, something that can pull their attention away from us long enough for Ellis to work on the locks. Nora frowned. And what kind of distraction are we talking about? Jace's expression hardened. Me. The general wants me to fight in the arena again, and from the way he's talking, it's going to be something big. If I can keep them focused on me during the fight, you'll have the time you need." Nora looked at him, her eyes filled with concern. "You're putting yourself in a lot of danger, Jace." "I know," he said quietly, "but it's our best shot." The cell fell silent as the group absorbed the weight of Jace's words. They all knew the risks, but they also knew that this was the only chance they had. The rebellion had begun, and there was no turning back. "We move tomorrow," Jace said, his voice firm. "Get ready." The following day arrived with a palpable tension hanging in the air. The alien guards seemed even more cautious than usual, their eyes flicking between the prisoners with suspicion. Word had spread that something big was coming, a spectacle unlike any other. Jace could feel the weight of their stares as he paced the cell, his mind rehearsing the plan again and again. Ellis had finished his work on the cell's locking mechanism the previous night. All they needed now was the right moment, and Jace's fight would provide the perfect distraction. Nora approached him quietly, her brow furrowed in concern. "Are you sure about this, Jace? We can still wait, maybe come up with another plan." Jace shook his head. "We don't have time. The general knows I'm up to something, even if he's not sure what. If we wait too long, he'll close the window, and we'll lose our chance. This fight is the only way." Nora looked like she wanted to argue, but she held back, nodding instead. "Just be careful. You've got all of us depending on you now." Jace gave her a small, reassuring smile. "I'll do what I can. You just make sure everything's ready on your end." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor, and the familiar metallic clang of the cell door unlocking signaled the arrival of the guards. They stepped in, their usual gruffness replaced with a sense of formality. It was clear this fight was going to be different. "You," the lead guard growled, pointing at Jace. "It's time." Jace took a deep breath, steeling himself. He exchanged one last glance with Nora and the rest of the group, then followed the guards out into the dimly lit hallway. As they led him through the labyrinthine corridors, his thoughts flicked between the coming battle and the escape plan. They finally reached the entrance to the arena, and the roar of the crowd hit Jace like a physical force. The alien spectators were more energized than ever, their excitement building to a fever pitch. He could feel the weight of thousands of eyes watching him as he stepped into the open space. The arena floor was different this time, larger, with strange metallic structures scattered around the perimeter. Jace's eyes scanned the area, searching for any clue as to what he was about to face. The tension in the air was thick, and even the audience seemed to be holding its collective breath. The booming voice of the general echoed through the arena's loudspeakers, silencing the crowd. "Today, you will witness a battle like no other, a test of strength, intelligence, and survival. Our human fighter has impressed us so far, but now we will see if he can face the ultimate challenge." A low rumble reverberated through the ground, and Jace's heart pounded in his chest. From the far side of the arena, a massive gate began to rise. The rumbling grew louder, and Jace instinctively shifted into a defensive stance. Whatever was coming, it was going to be big. The creature that emerged from the gate was unlike anything Jace had ever seen. It towered over him, easily 3 times his height, with thick, armored scales covering its body. Its eyes glowed with a primal rage, and its massive claws dug into the ground with each step. The crowd roared in anticipation. Jace swallowed hard, his mind racing. This wasn't just a beast. It was a weapon, something bred for destruction. He could see now why the general had been so confident. This creature was designed to tear apart anything in its path. The general's voice crackled through the speakers again. "Behold the Kragoth, a creature of unmatched power. Will the human survive, or will he fall like the rest?" The Kragoth let out a deafening roar, shaking the very foundations of the arena. Jace's instincts screamed at him to run, but he knew there was no escape. Not yet. He had to buy time for Nora and the others. The beast charged, its massive bulk thundering toward him with terrifying speed. Jace darted to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's swipe. Its claws ripped through the metallic structure behind him, shredding it like paper. Jace's mind went into overdrive. The creature was fast, but its sheer size made it sluggish in its movements. He had to use that to his advantage. If he could stay one step ahead, he might be able to find a weakness. The Kragoth charged again, and Jace leaped onto one of the nearby structures, scrambling to gain some height. From his elevated position, he could see the weak spots in the beast's armor, small gaps between the thick plates of scales. But getting close enough to exploit them would be a different story. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, watching as Jace danced around the Kragoth's attacks, dodging and weaving with precision. But it was only a matter of time before his stamina ran out, and the creature wasn't tiring. Jace had to think fast. He scanned the arena, noting the various pieces of debris scattered across the floor, remnants of previous battles. His eyes locked onto a long metal spear half buried in the dirt. It was his only shot. He made a break for the weapon, sprinting across the arena floor as the Kragoth lunged after him. Just as he reached the spear, the beast slammed its claws into the ground, sending a shockwave that knocked Jace off his feet. Pain shot through his body as he hit the ground hard, but he gritted his teeth and pushed himself up, grabbing the spear with both hands. The Kragoth roared, charging at him once more. This time, Jace was ready. He waited until the last possible second, then dodged to the side, driving the spear into the gap between the creature's scales. The Kragoth let out a howl of pain, its massive body thrashing wildly. The crowd erupted into cheers as Jace pressed his advantage, using the spear to attack the creature's vulnerable spots. But he knew this wasn't the end. He had to hold out long enough for Nora and the others to escape. As the Kragoth stumbled back, wounded but not defeated, Jace's mind raced. The real battle wasn't here in the arena. It was happening in the cell block. He just hoped his friends were ready. Back in the cell, Nora and Ellis were moving quickly. The guard's shift change was minutes away, and Ellis was already working on bypassing the security systems. Sweat dripped down his face as he frantically worked the wires. "Come on," Ellis muttered, his fingers shaking with urgency. Just a little more time. Nora kept a watchful eye on the corridor, her heart pounding. She knew Jace was buying them as much time as he could, but they had to move fast. Finally, with a soft click, the cell door slid open. Ellis let out a breath of relief. "We're in." Nora nodded. "Now let's get the others and get out of here." The rebellion had truly begun. The moment the cell door slid open, Nora, Ellis, and the others sprang into action. The tension of the previous days vanished, replaced by a sharp focus as they moved quickly and silently through the dimly lit corridors. Every step was measured, every movement precise. This was the moment they had prepared for. There was no turning back now. "Stay close," Nora whispered, her eyes scanning the corridor ahead. "We stick to the plan." Ellis, ever the strategist, nodded, his hands gripping the makeshift blaster he had stolen from one of the guards earlier. "We've got a small window. If we're not out of this section by the time the next shift arrives, we're dead." The group pressed on, navigating the maze-like structure of the alien facility. The walls seemed to pulse with an eerie light, casting long shadows as they moved. Jace had done his part by distracting the guards, but they still had to get past the main security checkpoint to reach the outer levels of the complex. As they rounded a corner, Nora froze, holding up a hand to stop the others. A pair of alien guards stood at the end of the hallway, their backs turned as they talked in their guttural language. Nora motioned to Ellis and Sophie, the former gymnast who had proven to be one of their fastest runners. "You two, take the left side," Nora whispered. "I'll take the right. Wait for my signal." They nodded, moving into position with quiet precision. Nora's heart raced as she crouched low, inching closer to the guards. Every second felt like an eternity, the tension building as they waited for the perfect moment. Without warning, One of the guards shifted, turning in their direction. Nora's breath caught in her throat, but before the alien could react, she sprang into action. With a swift, silent motion, she leaped forward, taking the guard down with a well-placed strike to the back of its head. Ellis and Scifi followed suit, disabling the second guard before it could raise an alarm. "Nice work," Ellis muttered, pulling the unconscious guard behind a stack of crates. "Let's keep moving," Nora said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through her veins. "We're almost there." They pressed forward, finally reaching the security checkpoint that stood between them and freedom. A massive metal door blocked the way, flanked by a control panel that blinked with strange alien symbols. "This is it," Ellis said, stepping forward. "Give me a minute, and I'll get this open." Nora nodded, glancing back at the rest of the group. They were anxious, but ready. Behind them, the distant roar of the arena crowd echoed through the halls, reminding her that Jace was still fighting for his life. Ellis worked quickly, his fingers flying across the control panel as he bypassed the alien security systems. Nora watched the corridor, keeping an ear out for any approaching guards. Every second felt like a gamble. If they were caught now, everything would be for nothing. Finally, with a low hiss, the door slid open. Beyond it was a vast hangar, filled with alien ships of all shapes and sizes. The group stared in awe for a moment, the sight of the sleek, otherworldly vessels taking their breath away. "This is it," Ellis said, a grin spreading across his face. "Our way out." Nora's mind raced as she quickly surveyed the hangar. They needed a ship, something fast and easy to pilot. Her eyes landed on a smaller craft near the far wall, a sleek, nimble-looking ship that seemed perfect for a quick getaway. "That one," she said, pointing. "Let's go." The group moved as one, sprinting across the hangar toward the ship. Ellis was already at the controls before they even reached it, his fingers dancing across the unfamiliar interface as he worked to bring the ship online. Come on," he muttered under his breath, his brow furrowed in concentration. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hangar, and Nora's heart leaped into her throat. "Hurry, Ellis. We've got company." Several alien guards had entered the hangar, their eyes locking onto the group as they scrambled to board the ship. Nora grabbed a blaster from one of the fallen guards and fired a few warning shots, keeping the aliens at bay as Ellis continued to work. "I'm almost there," Ellis shouted, his hands flying over the controls. The ship hummed to life, its engines whirring as the ramp lowered. "Everyone, get inside," Nora ordered, covering the group as they rushed onto the ship. Ellis finally slammed his hand down on the control panel, and the ship roared to life, its engines glowing with a bright blue light. The guards rushed toward them, firing their weapons, but it was too late. The ship lifted off the ground, and with a deafening roar, they shot out of the hangar and into the open sky. For a moment, there was silence, just the hum of the ship's engines and the distant stars stretching out before them. Nora let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding, her muscles finally relaxing. "We did it," Scifi whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We're actually out." But Nora knew it wasn't over yet. "We're not safe yet. The general's going to come after us, and we've got to be ready." Ellis nodded, his expression serious. "We'll have to find somewhere to hide. And fast." As they soared through the alien skies, Nora's mind was already racing ahead, planning their next move. They had escaped the facility, but the real challenge was just beginning. They were fugitives now, hunted by the most powerful force in the galaxy. And Jace, Nora's heart sank as she thought of him, still down in the arena, fighting the Kragoth. He had risked everything to buy them time, and now they had to find a way to save him. "We'll come back for him," she vowed quietly, her hands gripping the controls. "We're not leaving anyone behind." The ship accelerated, disappearing into the vastness of space, but the fight for their freedom was far from over. The stars streaked by in a blur as the stolen ship sped through the vast expanse of space. Nora sat at the controls, her knuckles white, as she piloted the craft at breakneck speed. Behind her, Ellis, Sophie, and the rest of the group tried to catch their breath, the adrenaline of their escape still coursing through their veins. "We've put some distance between us and the facility," Ellis said, leaning over to check the ship's sensors. "But they'll be coming after us. It's only a matter of time before the General realizes we're gone." Nora nodded, her eyes fixed on the display in front of her. The alien ship's controls were foreign, but she had managed to figure out the basics. Right now, her only concern was putting as much distance as possible between them and the alien prison. But Ellis was right. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. "We need to find a safe place to lay low," Nora said, her voice steady. "Somewhere off their radar." Ellis tapped a few buttons, pulling up a map of the surrounding star systems. "There's a small, uninhabited moon not too far from here. It's in a nebula, which could help shield us from their sensors." Nora glanced at the coordinates. It was risky, but it was their best shot. "Set the course. We'll hide there for now." As Ellis worked on plotting their course, Nora's thoughts drifted to Jace. He was still down there, fighting for his life in the arena. She had promised herself they would come back for him, but the reality of their situation was grim. They had barely escaped with their lives, and now they were being hunted by one of the most dangerous forces in the galaxy. "We'll get him out," Ellis said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "We just need to regroup, gather our strength. He's tough. He'll survive until then." Nora nodded, though the knot in her stomach didn't loosen. "I know, but we can't leak him there for long. He's buying us time, but the longer we wait, the harder it will be." The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the nebula, the dense clouds of gas and dust swirling around them. For a brief moment, the tension eased as the alien facility disappeared from their sensors. They were hidden, at least for now. Sophie, still shaken from the escape, moved to sit next to Nora. "Do you think we'll make it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nora glanced at her, seeing the fear in the younger woman's eyes. Sophie had proven herself in the arena and during their escape, but the weight of their situation was beginning to show. "We'll make it," Nora said firmly. "We've come this far, and we're not giving up now." As the ship glided deeper into the nebula, the oppressive silence of space seemed to close in around them. For a moment, it felt like they had outrun their enemies, but deep down, Nora knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The alien general wouldn't let them go so easily. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared to life, red lights flashing across the console. Nora's heart skipped a beat as she glanced at the sensors. "No." Ellis slammed his fist against the control panel. "They found us." A massive alien warship loomed behind them, its sleek, angular design cutting through the nebula like a predator stalking its prey. The general had wasted no time. He was coming for them, and he had brought the full might of his fleet with him. "We've got to move," Ellis shouted, frantically working the controls. "If they catch us out here, we're dead." Nora gritted her teeth and pushed the ship's engines to their limit. The stolen craft shuddered under the strain, but it surged forward, weaving through the dense clouds of the nebula. Behind them, the alien warship opened fire, bright beams of energy streaking through the darkness. "Hang on," Nora shouted as she banked hard to the left, narrowly avoiding a barrage of laser fire. The ship's shields flared, absorbing the impact of a near miss, but they wouldn't last much longer. "They're closing in," Sophie cried, her knuckles white, as she gripped the side of her seat. Nora's mind raced. They were faster than the warship, but only just. They couldn't outrun the general forever, not in this dense nebula. They needed a plan, and fast. "We can't fight them head-on," Ellis said, his voice tight with fear. "But if we can lure them deeper into the nebula, maybe we can lose them in the gas clouds." Nora nodded, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the display. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance." With a sharp turn, Nora guided the ship deeper into the heart of the nebula. The swirling clouds grew thicker, obscuring their vision and sensors. Behind them, the alien warship continued its relentless pursuit, but its firepower was less accurate in the dense environment. "Come on," Nora muttered under her breath, her hand steady on the controls. Just a little further. The ship's engines roared as they pushed through the nebula, the gas clouds growing denser by the second. The alien warship fired again, but the shots went wide, the thick atmosphere distorting their aim. "They're losing us," Ellis said, a note of hope in his voice. "It's working." But Nora wasn't celebrating yet. "We're not out of this yet. Keep an eye on the sensors." Suddenly, a massive bolt of energy streaked past them, narrowly missing the ship. Nora's heart leaped into her throat as the ship rocked from the shockwave. "They're still on us," Scifi shouted, her eyes wide with fear. Nora clenched her jaw and banked hard to the right, narrowly avoiding another barrage of fire. "We've got to shake them." As they raced deeper into the nebula, the alien warship continued to close in, its massive bulk cutting through the clouds with ease. The general wasn't giving up, and neither could they. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Nora shouted, her heart pounding in her chest. "We're not done yet." The chase was on, and their survival depended on their next move. The stolen ship weaved through the thick, swirling clouds of the nebula. But the alien warship was relentless, inching closer with every passing second. Nora pushed the craft to its limits, sweat beading on her forehead as the controls trembled in her hands. "They're not letting up," Scifi cried, clutching her seat as the ship rattled under another near miss from the enemy's weapons. Ellis slammed his fist against the console. "They're too fast. We need to find a way out of this mess." Nora's mind raced. They couldn't outrun the general forever, but perhaps they didn't need to. She glanced at the scanners, noting the dense ion clouds ahead. The interference from those clouds could be their only hope. "I've got an idea," she said, her voice tight with determination. "We're going to head straight into the ion clouds. The interference will mess with their targeting systems. It might buy us enough time to escape." Ellis's eyes widened. "That's insane. We'll be flying blind in there. One wrong move and we'll crash." "Do you have a better idea?" Nora shot back, her grip tightening on the controls. "It's either that or let them blast us out of the sky." Ellis hesitated, then nodded grimly. "Fine. Let's do it." With a deep breath, Nora angled the ship towards the ion clouds. The vessel surged forward, plunging into the thick, crackling storm of gas and energy. The sensors flickered wildly as the interference began to take hold, distorting their readouts. Behind them, the alien warship slowed, its firepower growing less accurate as it entered the storm. Come on," Nora muttered under her breath, eyes darting between the controls and the swirling clouds outside the viewport. Every second felt like an eternity as the ship zigzagged through the storm, narrowly avoiding massive bursts of energy. "Shields are holding, but they're getting weaker," Ellis warned, his voice tense. Nora pushed the ship harder, her hand steady as they threaded the needle through the storm. The alien warship, despite its size, wasn't giving up. The general's persistence was terrifying, but Nora had faced impossible odds before. She wasn't about to back down now. Suddenly, a massive blast rocked the ship. The power flickered, and the entire vessel shook violently. "We've been hit," Scifi screamed, her voice filled with panic. "Hold on," Nora shouted, fighting to keep the ship steady. Sparks flew from the control panels as the alarms blared, but she refused to let go. They had come too far to lose now. Ellis frantically worked the systems. "We're losing engine power. One more hit like that, and we're finished." Nora gritted her teeth, steering the ship deeper into the storm. She knew they couldn't survive much longer, but she wasn't about to give up. There has to be something. And then she saw it. A massive asteroid field loomed ahead, hidden deep within the ion storm. The rocks were enormous, floating ominously in the chaotic expanse of space. It was dangerous, but it might be their only way out. "We're heading into the asteroid field," Nora shouted over the din of alarms. "Are you crazy?" Ellis yelled. "We'll be smashed to pieces. We'll be dead if we don't." Nora snapped. "Trust me." With a hard turn, Nora plunged the ship into the asteroid field. Massive rocks hurtled past them, some only narrowly missing the ship. The stolen craft twisted and turned as Nora expertly guided them through the dangerous terrain. Behind them, the alien warship struggled to follow, its bulk too large to maneuver as quickly. "They're falling behind," Scifi shouted, a note of hope in her voice. Nora's heart raced. It was working. The alien warship, despite its superior firepower, couldn't keep up with their nimble craft in the asteroid field. But they weren't out of danger yet. "We need to find a place to hide," Nora said, scanning the area for any signs of safety. "We can't keep this up forever." Ellis pointed ahead. "There. That asteroid. It's hollow." Nora glanced at the readings. Sure enough, the asteroid had a massive cavern inside, large enough to conceal their ship. It was a gamble, but it might be their best chance at survival. "Hang on," Nora yelled, steering the ship towards the hollow asteroid. The craft plunged into the darkness of the cavern just as another barrage of fire from the alien warship missed them by inches. Inside the asteroid, the ship came to a stop, the silence of space suddenly deafening after the chaos of the chase. Nora slumped back in her seat, her body trembling with exhaustion. "Did we lose them?" Scifi asked, her voice shaky. Ellis checked the sensors, his face pale. "I think so. They're still out there, but the interference from the storm and the asteroid field is messing with their sensors. They can't find us." For the first time in what felt like hours, Nora allowed herself to breathe. They had done it. They had escaped, at least for now. "What now?" Scifi asked, her voice still trembling from the adrenaline. Nora leaned back in her seat, staring out at the dark, rocky interior of the asteroid. "We rest, we recover, and then we go back for Jace." Ellis nodded. "We can't leave him there. He's counting on us. We won't leave him," Nora said firmly, her voice filled with determination. "We're coming back for him, and when we do, we're bringing the fight to the general." As the group sat in the dark, hidden within the hollow asteroid, the weight of their journey ahead loomed over them. The general was still out there, and Jace was still fighting for his life in the arena. But they had escaped the impossible once, and they would do it again. Nora closed her eyes, her mind already racing with plans. This wasn't the end. Not yet. Their final battle was just beginning.